Good morning, YouTubers. Well, it's 9 o'clock now, and the queue is just moved. It's just moving along nice and freely. Seems to be going well. And I've mentioned before about grudges and going back to 1704 and the likes. But what you got to remember from the Spanish perspective, because we've got to try and keep it in perspective. I don't want to be just totally sort of biased and be British, because I am British, and I do obviously have a lot of support for the Rock. But I also live in Spain, and so as a person who lives in Spain, I've got to sort of put the Spanish perspective forward as well. And to be fair, what actually happened here was it was Spanish before, but it wasn't Spanish for that long, actually, although it's part of Spain. The Moors came here in 711, so it goes back a long, long way. And the Moors invaded. Islam came to bring Islam to the Christian infidels in Europe, and they came here. They landed right here in 711, and it was the Moors that made that rock into a town. They built the castle there. There's a castle, you can just about see the Moorish castle there. They built that in shortly after they arrived in 711, and their leader was a chap called Tariq, and they built the town. They built everything, and that was their headquarters, their base, because you can see Africa across the strait here. And that name of the rock was Tariq's mountain, Jebel Tariq in Muslim, was in Arabic. I don't speak Arabic, by the way, but so it was called Jebel Tariq. And the Moors had it for 600 years while they invaded the rest of Europe. You all seen El Cid and what was he called, Charlton Heston, the gates of Valencia, fighting the Muslims and that. And off they went, and they had a huge influence in southern Spain. And so Spain was lots of little kingdoms in those days, and they sort of all rose up together. And it wasn't for about 600 years that they finally got the Muslims out of Europe completely, and they got all the way back into Gibraltar itself and took Gibraltar. They took it for 20 years, and then they got thrown out again. And then a while later, they finally got the Moors out of Europe. So they had been fighting over that rock for 600 years. So I don't want to take that away from Spain, because they were genuinely doing that. And they had the last battles in Malaga, I think, big castle at Malaga, to get the Moors out of there. And they finally got them out of Gibraltar. And Gibraltar became Spanish, and it was Spanish for, I think, somewhere around 200. You could get the dates. You could look the dates up. It was about 200 years. Now they'd given the governor of Gibraltar, who was a Spaniard, a load of money, and said they beef up the defences, make the town strong again. And he went, yeah. And he spent it on wine, women, and amateur dramatics. And then one day the British and the Dutch turned up and took it off him. And they've been pissed about it ever since. So, you have to get everything in perspective. But, today we've moved on. We've moved on in life. We're not dwelling constantly on having wars with each other all the time about land and territories. And at one time, the Rock would genuinely have been of strategic importance to an army, to a general, to a king, and things like that. But it's not anymore. It really isn't. The weapons we've got today render it completely useless, really. There's nothing there that Spain needs other than just want it, because it was theirs and they wanted it back, really. And if they continue with this attitude where they're just not negotiating with each other and we're just not getting on, it's just going to hold everyone back for longer, and people are just going to suffer, aren't they? Just ordinary people. Whereas if we move on and go forward, that border can disappear. People can live in Gibraltar. They can live in because there's a lot of investments that wants to come to La Linea into Spain from Gibraltar. There's lots of people been land banking. They've been buying up properties, hoping that border's going to disappear. And I hope it does, because it will benefit both communities tremendously when that happens. And if we can just get over sorts of petty differences and historical things that happened hundreds of years before we were all born, we can just get on with it in life. You know, quite often with politics, they'll turn to something to rouse the people when things aren't going well, and Gibraltar is one of those subjects that they bring up every now and then. It's a bit like the Weymouth, you know, Portland Bill. Imagine if Spain had taken Portland Bill from the British in the Armada days, and it had been Spanish to this day. I mean, it's a similar sort of situation, isn't it? Although not quite as long ago. But fabulous place, and I just wish everyone could get on and just live happily ever after, you know, because there's no reason for political nonsense. There really isn't. Hope that explains a bit.